the rankings that came out, the projected bracket. I want to ask you this, just because I feel like everybody I've asked this question to has ties to the Big 12. You have no ties to the Big 12.
I do not.
Why? What is the perception of the Big 12 right now? Because it seems like it's okay. Here's the SEC and the Big 10, which I'm fine with those. And then it seems like here's the ACC. And then it seems like here's every other conference in college football that we can find, maybe the Big Sky, and then the Big 12. It feels like that's the perception of the Big 12 from the College Football Playoff Committee. What did I miss?
Well, I think the biggest thing was, and this is, and funny enough, I actually had this conversation with SID, Jeremy Hawks. We were talking about it. It was the preseason notion of the Big 12, right? Because everybody wanted Oklahoma State, Utah to be the top dogs. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, teams that were at the bottom or mid-tier, BYUs of the world, right, rose up. Oklahoma State tanked, and then, of course, Arizona State just kept steadily rising. And then they were like, well, we want Kansas State to be that type of team. Well, Kansas State didn't do that. Oh, well, you know what? Kansas had a good year a couple years ago. Maybe them.
Nope.
Right? U of A had a great year last year in the Pac-12. Maybe them. Nope. The team that got picked for last place in the Big 12 preseason rankings got the first auto bid to the championship game.
Yeah.
And even as they started beating teams of note that everybody else wanted, they still never made it into the rankings. And so that was the toughest thing. Like, I felt like after the Utah victory, should have been in the top 25.
I was there with you at that point because Utah was still supposed to be good at that point.
Yeah, so 2-3 weeks before they actually broke the top 25, they should have been in there.
Yeah,
because then we wouldn't have had this conversation at the end of the year that's winning you're in.
Yeah.
You know, but because it was such a depressing, it felt like the land of forgotten toys with the Big 12 because they didn't go get Oregon. They didn't go get Washington. They didn't go USC or UCLA when the Big 12 was falling apart and all the rest of them kind of fell into the Big 12's lap. And then you had Cal Stanford that decided to Red Rover across the country. It was like, well, this team isn't as good. Well, we know we've had Clemson before. FSU was really good a year ago. So the ACC should be up there. And Miami had a great year. But then we saw what Miami was. Your brother's team, go Orange Men.
Yeah, thank you.
Knock them out.
Spoken like a true Gator.
Yeah.
The Cuse.
Yeah.
So I guess.
Yeah, so that's really what it was.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you a general question in regard to the college football playoff rankings.
Yeah.
How do you feel about them right now? What's your problem? If you had to pick one team, what is it?
Penn State.
Penn State. Why?
Because they didn't play anybody. They didn't play. And the team that they did play, they got beat.
That's where I'm confused with some of this
Indiana the same way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Indiana played nobody, and the one test they get the doors blown off of them, and they're still there.
Yeah. What about Alabama?
Bama, if you have 3 losses or you've had some bad losses, I don't know. I don't think you deserve to be in the college football playoff. Honestly.
Yeah.
I really think that ASU should already be in that top 12 already. They shouldn't be at 15 fighting for it because they've had quality victories and they've done it convincingly and they've done it against odds. They beat the spreads, right? And so, when you look at a team like that, and even, I argued earlier about Army when they were undefeated before they faced Notre Dame. Right. I'm like, it's going to correct itself, but if you're an undefeated team and you've played decent teams, you should be up there. So and a 1-loss and a 2-loss team should be before 3-loss teams. Ole Miss has no business being up there. Right? Ole Miss and Alabama have no business being in front of either one of those two teams.
In front of even Miami, right? I mean,
Miami
lost 2 games. They shouldn't be behind.
And we all know why Alabama is there. We all understand why.
Exactly. It's the brand. We do. It's the brand.
So is this perception of the Big 12, though, is this just because of this year, or is this something that they're going to fight now going forward? Because I honestly thought this year and going forward, like 5 weeks ago, it was decided the Big 12 had no chance of getting 2 teams. It's just like a given. Oh, there's no way they could get 2 teams. It's like, well, they're a Power 4 conference, and the top 3 teams kept winning. I mean, I know BYU lost to ASU, but you've got 3 teams with 2 losses, and BYU is going to finish with 2 losses, and we're going to see a 3-loss team in there, and it was just like a foregone conclusion that team would be in there. Is it a 1-year thing that they have to fight through, or are they always going to be, it's basically a Power 3 and then a bunch of other conferences and then the Big 12?
No, I think this was the first year, right? This is the first pressure cooker test.
Okay.
because I honestly think going into the season, the Big 12 was probably slated higher at its top end than the ACC.
I don't understand why they're behind the ACC now.
Yeah, exactly. And that's my point. I think this is the first year of putting all these schools together and having these super conferences, right? To where now it's the top two. It's not divisions anymore, right? Because we have more than 12 teams in each of these conferences. So the teams that have numbered names probably need to change those. Big 12 and Big 10. You're no longer 12 and 10, teams in there. But I think this is the first year to see how it was going to go.
Okay.
And I think it balances itself back out because now you realize 1 year you can flip your program. You can flip the identity of it.
Yes.
So it's not just a given that the SEC and Big 10 are going to be the best at all time. Because I would argue there's no superstars in the SEC. Now, there is one in the Big 10, but it was a Pac-12 team in Oregon.
I want to ask you that quickly right here. Give me your top 3 conferences in order.
In order for this year, I would say, that's tough. That's tough because
you have to decide if you're going top to bottom or
is it top to bottom or just overall conference?
1, 2, 3. Give me your best conference. For me, it's still the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, SEC is number one because I feel like there's more good teams.
Yeah.
Right? It's more good teams. Then I'd say the Big 10 is very top heavy. Then I go Big 12. Big 12 has a lot of quality teams in there. And then I will put the ACC and then, I rank Mountain West right there, right behind them.
Man.
I say Mountain West and then Sun Belt.
Just to Luke's point right there, just the fact he'd rank him number 3.
I don't.
What's the perception with the Big 12?
Especially because it's so definitive, where it's like, well, you beat other Big 12 teams. Well, why is that a bad thing? I mean,
it's not a bad thing.
Boise State has been impressive. They haven't beat anybody.
No, their best game was a loss to Oregon by 3.
If your best game is a loss, that doesn't mean you're automatically better than an entire conference.
Yeah, and listen, you got a good running back, so he's marquee. And Ashton Genty is an absolute phenomenon.
He's the real deal. He's
the real deal. But that can't carry your team.
Correct.
When you're playing lesser competition.
It definitely shouldn't carry your entire conference.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching Wolf and Luke. Tap to see more and click the button in the middle to subscribe to Arizona Sports.